Welcome, everyone. We're so happy you could join us today. I'm Shelby Croft. I'm the Communications Director for the Ohio Department of Agriculture. We're about to get started here, but before the presentation, we'd just like to explain the question and answer portion to you to make sure everyone knows how to ask a question. Now, we'll have the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, but you are welcome to submit a question at any point during the presentation. Now, to do that, on the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a Q&A box. If it is not open, just click on the double conversation bubble that's up in the right-hand side of your screen. Once that's open, you'll see a box at the bottom. You can type in your question, you can submit it, and you can also choose to submit those questions anonymously. Once again, the Q&A portion will be at the end of the presentation, but you can submit those questions at any point. I would now like to welcome Joy Mullinex. She's the Executive Director of the Lake Erie Commission. Joy?
All right, thank you, Shelby, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we talk about plans for our third year of Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted's H2Ohio initiative. Yes, believe it or not, we have just entered our third year of this program, which is great news. Next slide. So we can start our discussion with an overview of what the most recent biennium budget included for H2Ohio. Funds are allocated to the three agencies: Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Environmental Protection, as they were 2 years ago. This biennium, the Ohio Lake Erie Commission is receiving a small amount of funding for some specific modeling work. And on behalf of the H2Ohio team, we really appreciate the support from the General Assembly, as well as to all of you who advocated in support of H2Ohio. So a huge thank you. Next slide. As I said, the Ohio Lake Erie Commission received funding for an H2Ohio response model. We requested this funding so that we can answer questions about the impact that H2Ohio projects and programs are going to have on the phosphorus loading into the western basin of Lake Erie. Earlier this year, the H2Ohio team released a very rough estimate of the phosphorus load reduction from the 2020 H2Ohio funded projects once they're on the farm fields and fully constructed. But we really want to continue to refine our understanding of what's happening as a result of H2Ohio management practices and projects. So the Commission will be working with Ohio State and the University of Toledo on this response model. The researchers will be estimating the water quality benefits of the 10 H2Ohio best management practices through their improved SWOT model. They will also evaluate the H2Ohio program impact to date and provide guidance on water quality impacts that can be expected over time from our H2Ohio work. Next slide. And I will wrap up my portion with a reminder that the General Assembly asked for an annual report every August on H2Ohio activities. So we are at the end of July right now, and so this second report will be coming in the coming weeks. We are in the process of preparing it, and we will have a lot of great information to share with you in the coming weeks. As a reminder, Department of Agriculture's data on signups and contract extensions will be coming in an addendum later in the fall. So that is my presentation, and I am going to turn things over to Director Dorothy Polinda at the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you, Joy. Well, we're so pleased to be with you this afternoon to talk about the progress, the excitement, and the support that the H2Ohio program through the Department of Agriculture has received and generated this past year and going forward. Next slide, please. So the new budget provides $60 million to fund the H2Ohio program efforts at ODA for the next 2 years. Currently, the Department of Agriculture proposes to commit $42 million to the 14 county Maumee Watershed area. That is the original area in which we initiated our H2Ohio program through ODA. But the exciting news is that we will be expanding that program to an additional 10 counties in the Maumee Watershed with up to $78 million to implement programming in those new counties. We're also providing additional financial assistance across the Western Lake Erie Basin to the Soil and Water District offices for staffing. Next slide, please. So here is a map showing the original 14 counties in green and the new counties that will be part of the H2Ohio program. We're going to do things a little differently in the 10 county expansion based upon a lot of great information and things that we learned in the first 2 years of the H2Ohio program through ODA. First of all, we're going to approach these new counties in 2 phases. The first of which being is to fund and to ensure that a nutrient management plan is in place before proceeding to the next farming practices that are currently being used in the 14 counties. We learned that sometimes some of those producers had not implemented a nutrient management plan but proceeded to use other practices, and we understand how critically important that nutrient management plan is to the entire program. Next slide, please. So this also, this might be our next slide, our last slide. This talks about House Bill 7. This year, the governor signed into law House Bill 7, which requires the Director of Agriculture to appoint watershed coordinators in each of our 7 watershed districts. And so, once again, we have allocated certain portions of our budget to do just that. These watershed coordinators are tasked in this first year with understanding the water impairments, looking at the farming practices unique to each of these districts, and making proposed recommendations going forward about priorities for nutrient and water management. I believe that's my last slide. And at this point, I'm going to turn over the program to Mary Mertz, the Director of the Department of Natural Resources. Mary?
Great. Thank you, Director Planda. I really appreciate that. Why don't we go on to the next slide? So as many of you on this call know, our first 2 years of funding have resulted in all these dots on the map. These are 59 wetland projects in contract. And, in the coming 2 years, I expect a lot more dots on this map. But while I love this map, while it shows all the activity and shows all the projects we've started, I am equally excited to show you the next slide, which shows something more real. So 59 projects started, and I am thrilled that this summer we were able to cut the ribbon on a whole bunch of them. So, the projects that we have under contract range from very small, just a few acres in strategic places, to very large, hundreds of acres, and kind of everything in between. So some of the smaller and mid-sized ones, the work has been completed, vegetation is growing, water has filled the area. So I'm excited we've actually accomplished something, right? We have these wetlands out there and we can begin the monitoring process. And I'm thrilled to say at a couple of these, or many of these ribbon cuttings, actually, I was delighted to have Dr. Johnson from Heidelberg and Dr. Midden from Bowling Green along. They are key members of the Higher Education Consortium that we have engaged to monitor, measure, give us feedback on what we're actually achieving at each of these locations. So it was really great. They were able to come along and bring their students and do some water testing while they were there to look at the practical application of the protocols they've developed to measure just what we're going to accomplish with this effort to reintroduce and enhance wetlands across the area. So I'm glad we were able to accomplish that. There are many more where we will cut the ribbon next summer. And then some of the more complex ones is going to be the year after that. The engineering and design demands are pretty significant. But I just wanted to show you what we've been doing this summer. Real stuff has been accomplished, and I think real progress is made. So if you slip to the next slide, again, some of you may have seen this, right? So we got the 59 projects, nearly $65 million has been put into those. And you can see some other numbers. I mean, we're really thrilled about the acres of watershed that will be filtered by these projects, and excited about what we'll be able to accomplish in other wildlife conservation and habitat goals as well. So this just kind of gives you the snapshot. I won't read all the numbers to you, but we're pleased the first 2 years we could do this. But moving on to the future, and the funding we just got, that's our next slide. So the 50 million that was included in the recently enacted budget for ODNR, it's 25 each fiscal year. And so we have already, you know, our intention for the first year is to make the allocations as you see on the slide here. So we're continuing our focus up in Northwest Ohio. And so the lion's share of the money, 15 million, will be invested there in additional wetlands projects. And those have really already been identified. As with every project out there, there's always one or two, you get into it and maybe a landowner changes their mind. Maybe as you begin to develop it, you discover facts that show won't be as efficient as you thought. So I don't want to say for sure but right now I think we're looking at nine significant projects up there that will use this allocation. I'm going to jump down to the 5 million committed to the Central Basin. Again, we have a handful of projects. I think we have 6 that we've identified over in that area that we will be moving forward with. So all of those projects in the Western Lake Erie Basin and Central Basin have been identified. We're working on scopes of work. We are working to get them into contract so that work can begin as soon as possible. The Ohio River Basin, we approached a little bit differently, and there what we're going to try for the time being is a competitive grant process. And in fact, I think that went out yesterday, maybe the day before, and we announced that there was the opportunity for nonprofits and local government entities to apply for the program, set forth some fairly general criteria. We did recently try to have a conversation, a meeting, a summit, a small group gathering of people who are really smart in this area. We couldn't include everybody that we wanted to. That we were just trying to kick it off, but we are anticipating many more conversations in the coming year with experts in the Ohio River Basin to really talk about where we need to focus our effort and our attention in those areas, because we want to get it right. So there'll be lots of conversations to come, but we know at least initially we can make some real progress by getting that first 5 million out there. So that application is out there. I believe the deadline might be the end of September. We want to give folks plenty of time to put together what they would propose that'll make the biggest difference in water quality possible. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish in this fiscal year. So we want to cut lots of ribbons on projects we started last year when springtime comes, and we want to get all of this money that we've just been given out in contract so we can continue to make a difference. And I think that that's all I have. So I think we have Jerry Rao joining us from Ohio EPA.
That's right, Director. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleased to be here with all of you. Director Stevenson had another important engagement that she had to attend to, but she asked me to provide an update on what Ohio EPA has been doing with the H2Ohio program, and I'm thrilled to be here with you all. I am the Chief of the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance at Ohio EPA, and my team was part of the group at Ohio EPA that oversaw the implementation of the H2Ohio initiative within Ohio EPA. So with that, I would like to go to the next slide, and I'd like to give a real brief overview of what we did in the first 2 years of the H2Ohio program, and then take a little bit of a peek as far as what we think we might do in year 3 of the H2Ohio program. So in the first biennium, the General Assembly approved the Ohio EPA to have a little over 17 million, 17.3 million in H2Ohio funds that were split between the 2 fiscal years. We had about 8.675 million available in each of the 2 state fiscal years. And so what we did with our H2Ohio funds was we looked at the needs, and we came up with 5 focus areas, and that's what we call them. Those 5 focus areas include investing in water and wastewater infrastructure. The second one is investing in the removal of lead service lines, especially at daycare centers. A third focus area is the repair or replacement of home sewage treatment systems. A fourth focus area was to do some investment in rain gauges and stream monitoring to help strengthen the state's data collection efforts. And then the 5th area was to do some investment in what we call a technology assessment program to try to evaluate some promising technologies for the prevention or treatment of harmful algal blooms. So those were our 5 focus areas. This graphic here shows you some of the investments that we made over the first biennium, the first 2-year period. And you can see that we invested a lot of funds in critical water and wastewater infrastructure, as well as the lead service lines and the home sewage treatment system. So from a dollars and cents standpoint, that was where we made kind of our major investments. The next slide, please. We'll show you, this is from year 1. Some of you may have seen this slide previously, but in this graphic, we're illustrating the projects that were funded related to drinking water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, and home sewage treatment system improvements. So the stars are drinking water and wastewater infrastructure improvement projects. We had $3.5 million that we awarded for those projects. And then the blue county shading represents the local health districts that were selected to receive funds to administer for the home sewage treatment system repair and replacement program, which has been very successful. The gray shading in there represents the Western Lake Erie Basin. So you can see our year 1 funding consisted of infrastructure projects kind of all around the state. But from a home sewage treatment system standpoint, it was focused more up in the western basin of Lake Erie. The next slide indicates the investment that we have made through both years with lead service line replacements at daycare centers. And specifically in round 1, we awarded a grant to the city of Cincinnati, and they had developed a program to replace lead service lines that are leading into daycare centers all throughout the city. And we were really excited to be able to partner with them. We took that same model and were able to award a similar grant to the city of Cleveland in round 2. And we're really excited about what those dollars are going to be able to do as far as removing lead service lines going into daycare centers. The next slide will show you some of the funding that we have just recently done in round 2 or year 2 of H2Ohio. So this graphic shows you the drinking water and wastewater infrastructure projects that we were able to invest in this last state fiscal year. We're really excited about these projects. You can see the drinking water infrastructure projects have the green shading, and the wastewater infrastructure projects have that yellow or kind of pumpkin color. You can also see that they are all throughout the state. These projects were selected on the basis of a number of different things. They're generally speaking, they're small small communities, the disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged in many cases. And some of these projects, many of these projects involve the extension of services to people that don't currently have them, which is to say the extension of sanitary sewer lines or water lines to people that don't have them. So we were really excited about the dollars that we were able to invest in these projects. And as Director Mertz said, a lot of these projects are just getting ready to get underway. So we're really looking forward to some ribbon cuttings and some actual real work getting done to implement these projects. The next slide will show you the investments that we made with the home sewage treatment focus area in year 2. And in year 2, we did 7 local health districts in year 1, and in year 2, we enlarged that to 11 local health districts. So you can see spread out pretty much around the state. These local health districts were selected on their basis to be able to administer these programs and really get these dollars out quickly to homeowners to replace their failing home sewage treatment system. So we have had some experience with all of these local health districts, and they have a proven track record of being superior performers as far as being able to get work done. So we are excited about them as well. Really looking forward to them getting a lot of work done. And then I think our last slide is just kind of our peek ahead into year 3. I mentioned that in the first biennium, the General Assembly directed about 17.3 million to Ohio EPA. For the current biennium, we've been awarded 20 million, which is 10 million per year of the biennium. And once again, we are excited about what we can do with that money, and we're planning to do some really good things. Our current thinking right now is that we're probably going to stay with the focus areas that we started in the first biennium. Those have been good, strong, fundamental things to invest in, and we'd like to stay in those lanes. So we anticipate that we will continue to award projects in the water and wastewater infrastructure focus area. We're going to be taking another look at the drinking water lead service line area and seeing what kind of investments we can make there that'll be very impactful for local communities. And then the third focus area is going to be probably a continued emphasis with the home sewage treatment system. So we're still fine-tuning our plans for round 3. But we're grateful of the opportunity to be able to administer this money, and we're really excited about the things that we'll be able to do with it. So with that, I think I am going to turn it back to Joy.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. So that concludes our presentation, and I think we can turn it back over for some questions and answers.
Sure, and Joy, we do have some questions coming in now. Once again, you can just type them in the chat box to the right. The first question, this would be for Director Mertz. Do the wetlands have a specific sunset or end that they will be reverted to non-wetland, or are these more long-term installations?
So the intention is that they are long-term installations. I don't know that we have an end date on any of them. The one exception I'll point out, one part of our program we refer to as the Water Quality Incentive Program, and it builds on the Lake Erie CREP program, right? So if a farmer or producer participates in Lake Erie CREP, which has a 15-year limit on it, we pay them a bonus if they will participate in one of the wetland options in that program. You know, and I can share with you, part of our thinking is we are very hopeful that after a producer has had some of their low producing acreage in wetland for 15 years, we hope they will continue to do that. That is what we hope, but the CREP program only requires it for 15. Now, our hope and intention would be that these are long-term permanent improvements to our landscape that will provide long-term permanent benefits. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Mertz. And our next question is for Joy. For the Lake Erie Commission's modeling project, which model will be used?
All right, thank you for the question. The commission is going to be funding Ohio State University's current SWOT model. SWOT is Soil and Water Assessment Tool, and this is a model in the Western Lake Erie Basin, and Dr. Margaret Kalsick is the lead researcher on the project.
Thank you, Joy. At this time, we don't have any more questions. Joy, did you have some comments you wanted to make, or other directors or Jerry, anything else that you wanted to comment on?
I just want to, again, thank everyone for your support for H2Ohio. We have been trying to host these events regularly so that we are transparent in what we're doing. We welcome your feedback at any occasion throughout the year on the projects and practices that we are doing, things that we should be looking at for the future. So please always feel free to reach out to any of us on the H2Ohio team. We welcome your feedback. And let us know how we can be doing this better. We've definitely been trying to invest in research so that we are consistently improving, but we know we can do better. So we invite your comments.
And Joy, excuse me, Joy, we do have another question that's come in. This is for Director Polanda. ODNR and Ohio EPA are using H2Ohio funds statewide. What plans does ODA have to expand their program statewide?
Thank you for that question. It's a really good one. We will probably begin to look at expansion in about 2 years from now, and here's why. In the original 14 counties, we asked farmers to commit to 3 years of being enrolled in the H2Ohio program with another 2 years at a reduced amount per acre. As we expand to the additional 10 counties in the Maumee Basin, those commitments will be similar. So, you know, we know that it took a long time for Lake Erie to get into the condition it's in. We know that we need to have farmers commit to more than 1 year in innovative farming practices to make a difference. We did learn this year that in the first year alone, with 1.1 million acres enrolled in the Maumee Basin, we were able to reduce phosphorus loading by 10%. That tells us we're doing the right things. It also tells us we need to increase the acreage in that area. So we are unique from ODNR and EPA's programs in that the installations that they're talking about are concentrated projects. We, on the other hand, have 3 to 5 year commitments that we must honor and focus on in these now 24 counties before we can consider moving forward.
Director Polanda, we have another question for you to answer. Could you clarify the different funding listed for the ODA, 60 million versus 78 million?
Yes, thank you, Joy. It's what we need to finish out the contracts in the original 14 counties and what we need to go forward in the new 10 counties.
Thank you, Director Polanda. Our next question is, for the health-related projects, are there plans for funding monitoring effectiveness and impact on human health? Jerry, I believe that would be directed to you.
Yeah, I'll try to take that. So as I mentioned, Ohio EPA does make investments in home sewage treatment, and we do that through the local health districts. We also make investments for public infrastructure, you know, like the extension of sanitary sewer lines in more dense, unsewered areas. So with many of those projects, once the solution has been installed, it will result in a very quick and a kind of a dramatic improvement. So in other words, if there is a failing or failed home sewage treatment systems, and they are contributing to a problem. Once they're replaced and it's been verified that they've been put in correctly and they're functioning correctly, the public health threat it pretty much it disappears. So it's with the projects that we implement, it's more a matter of certifying that they've been installed correctly and they're effective. And then once that has been proven, there's not too much of a need to go back and do detailed monitoring from a health standpoint.
Thank you, Jerry. Our next question, what is the level of interaction or information sharing with the Maumee TMDL as it might pertain to SWOT modeling?
So Shelby, I think we will need to get back to that question. We do not have Ohio EPA's Division of Surface Water on today's call, and the H2Ohio team is not directly involved with the Maumee TMDL.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Joy. And we'll be sure to get back to you, Todd, with an answer to your question. The next question, are there any new efforts to address confined feeding livestock operations?
This is Director Polanda, and I thank you for that question. You know, our Division of Livestock Permitting is a very rigorous program in which applicants have to go through an application process, have to meet rigorous requirements for us to either agree to a new facility or agree to expand an existing facility. You know, we believe that regulating these facilities is important. It allows us to come onto their property, make sure they're complying with all the laws that pertain to a facility like that, and be able to penalize them financially or shut them down if they do not comply with the existing laws. The concerns are rather with facilities that are not permitted, in which we really have no regulatory authority other than the basic statutory requirements.
Thank you, Director Polanda. And our next question is in regards to ODA also, and I'm not sure, Director, if you want to take this, or we also have H2Ohio team member Terry Mesher on here. How will you project reduction response for nutrient management plans? Is there auditing to assess implementation of what's in the nutrient management plan?
Well, I would be glad to answer that, but I think Terry Mesher, who's the Executive Director of our H2Ohio program, would be a great one to take this one. Terry?
Yes, thank you, Director. Thank you for the question. You know, really what we're trying to do, and I think Joy touched on it a little bit, is expanding the overall understanding and the modeling abilities that we have to assess the overall impacts, the overall results, outcomes of the H2Ohio program. So what we're doing right now with regards to projecting the responses, we are working, developing agreements with members of the Agricultural Research Service, Dr. Kevin King, to better assess some of the practices, including nutrient management, to build a better connection between practice implementation and how we model that, or how we assess that being applied over a greater range of acres. So we are working towards that end. As to whether or not the nutrient management plans are being audited and assessed, we are doing that daily. In order to become part of a program through ODA's offering, the nutrient management plan is the foundation. It's the ticket in the door to the program. So the program requirements require that a producer develop that nutrient management plan and submit that to the local soil and water conservation district. The Soil and Water Conservation District then will review that plan, make sure it's consistent with our requirements, make sure that the soil testing information is and the testing dates are recent enough, and make sure that the overall nutrient recommendations are in compliance with Tri-State Fertilizer Guide and Ohio NRCS's nutrient management standard. So that's how we're auditing and reviewing the nutrient management plan development. as well as we go forward in the program, and what we're doing a lot of right now is verifying the implementation of those nutrient management plans. So with that, we're asking producers to bring in application records for the nutrients and verifying that the plans were followed on an acre by acre basis. That's one of the things, to be perfectly honest, we've been struggling with, because the overall participation in the program has exceeded our expectations, and the workload has likewise exceeded our expectations. But those are the efforts that we're making right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Another question for ODA. Can Director Polanda clarify the role of nutrient management plans in her programming? We were told that farmers needed to have nutrient management plans prior to receiving any of the first year of H2Ohio funding. I thought I heard Director Polanda say that they're only now going to require these plans before receiving additional funding.
Thank you for the question, and to clarify, no. All producers in the original 14 county area had to have a nutrient management plan in place, and the practices verified before any money went out the door. We're modifying it in the new 10 counties to not offer anything but the nutrient management plan in this first phase, because we feel it's so important.
Thank you, Director Polanda, for clarifying that. We appreciate it. If there are any more questions, feel free to type them in. At this point, we are not seeing any new questions come up. So Joy, I am going to hand the program back to you.
All right. Well, we appreciate today's discussion. We covered everyone's programs, and again, we invite your comments on how we can do this a little bit better, things that we should be looking at in the future. Governor DeWine committed to having a data-driven program through H2Ohio, and so that is our goal. So we look forward to the continued conversation, and I think with that, we can close out today's session.